Welcome back to the Blood Bear channel. Pretty recently, I watched a movie called Mercy by Chris Pratt. Not by Chris Pratt, starring Chris Pratt. Why I say by? I guess I'm used to doing the book stuff, right? So I say by and then the author's name, but no, starring Chris Pratt. So yeah, in this video, I kind of just wanted to give my overall opinion of the film. Basically, this is like a movie review, basically. It has some similarities to the... I only have two categories. I only have characters and plot that I'm basing the movie off of. Mainly because I would do like other categories like cinematography, but I don't know that stuff, so I don't want to judge something based on something I don't understand, So, anyways, there's going to be spoilers in this video, so if you haven't seen the movie, go watch the movie. I enjoyed it, so just saying. I'll give you all a brief premise of what the movie is about. In the film, the film is basically about it's a sci-fi film technically, but like more modern, like I guess modernized sci-fi. So it's like only like near future sci-fi, and they implemented in the criminal justice aspect. They implemented an AI judge. So this judge basically gives access to basically all forms of media and criminal files and everything that you would need basically to be able to prove that you didn't commit a crime. And in this court, you are guilty until proven innocent, and you can prove that you're innocent by getting it, I think, lower. The probability of your guilt needs to be lower than 90%, I think, or 92 or something. I think there's a certain probability percentage of your guiltiness, and I think you have to lower that by 5%. So you can prove if you can lower your probability of committing the crime by 5%, and you can prove that based on facts of the crime, then you'll be free. And if you can't, then you're executed. Now, I'm pretty sure that this is only for violent crimes, so like murder, for instance, and that's where our main character comes in, played by Chris Pratt. He's Detective Chris Raven, I believe, and he endorsed this AI judge, the Mercy program, and the movie is basically about him being on trial for the murder of his wife, and he has to prove himself innocent with the program that he himself endorsed. So it's basically like putting him in the chair and seeing how, like, what this program did to other people, basically. So yeah, and he has to prove his innocence, and that's the premise of the movie, which I like. The premise of the movie, I think, is really cool. So yeah, anyways, let's go ahead and jump into these characters. So I'm just going to do a brief overview of some of these characters, mainly the more important characters to the story, and then after that we'll go into the plot, and then that's pretty much all this video is going to be about. So, because I feel like everybody can have opinion on character and story of something, I don't want to. That's why I don't want to talk about the cinematography and things, because I've never filmed other than like this stuff, so I don't know like the cinematography techniques and stuff, and to be able to judge whether it's good or not. So that's why I didn't include that here. I guess I could have done like in my book reviews, I could have done like a emotional impact one, where like if the story hits the emotional beats well or whatever, and I could have done other things like that. I just didn't. But anyways, characters. So first, we'll talk about Chris Raven. Again, he is a detective. He gets charged with murder of his wife, Nicole Raven. That's his wife. We'll talk about her in a bit. I say a bit. She's like number 5 on the list of my characters that I wrote in the script here. So yeah, we'll talk about her in more depth later. Anyways, he gets put up onto this into the Mercy program to be judged by the Mercy AI system, which I know it has a name. I think it's Matic is the name. I just called it Mercy throughout this entire thing. So I will probably refer to it as the Mercy program, or the AI judge, or whatever. Just call it Mercy. But yeah, he gets put up for that, and pretty much he's just like your normal run-of-the-mill like detective cop. But eventually his partner gets killed. He believes that it's his fault, so he starts drinking and develops a drinking problem due to his guilt and regret of that incident. And then that strains his marriage, so they start fighting and arguing all the time. His wife and a friend of his wife helps him kind of overcome that, but then he relapses, and she found out, and that's kind of where the movie starts. At least the investigation starts, because he went to work. Yeah, I don't know if I mentioned this. He has 90 minutes to prove that he's innocent. Also, in the Mercy Court, you have 90 minutes to prove your innocence. I might have mentioned that already, but I don't know. But yeah, his wife found out he relapsed because he went to work. His flask wasn't where he kept it in his car, so when he drove back, yelled at her, broke her vase, and then stormed out. At least that's what he says. Anyways, we'll get into the plot whenever it's plot time to talk about that. But yeah, that's his character. He has to obviously prove himself innocent of that crime, and learn to be not an alcoholic, I guess. Anyways, then we get to Robert Nelson, who is the second character I put on this list. And he is a work friend of Nicole Raven. They work at a place called Viking Shipping, which ships chemicals to different places. I'm not exactly sure. And he was a sponsor of Chris Raven. And I have to call him Chris Raven, otherwise it kind of gets confusing because he's played by Chris Pratt, So, anyways, he helped, and he's also the friend that helped Chris get sober before he, relapsed. So yeah, and he sponsors Chris and the Mercy Court as well. All right, now number 3, we get to Mercy. Mercy is the AI judge, jury, and executioner that is in charge of judging the defendants. And they are guilty until they prove themselves innocent. And the way she works, because it's a female AI, is that she judges solely on facts. And before the movie starts, there were 18 cases, so Chris Raven would be the 19th case that Mercy has handled, and all 18 prior cases ended in a guilty verdict, where the defendant was executed on the spot. And we see some of the things where, like, later in the film, it seems like Mercy kind of gets a more human aspect, I guess. The AI starts understanding that not everything's black and white in regards to humans, anyways. Is kind of that whole character arc, which is interesting. Anyways, character number 4. We have Britt Raven, which is the daughter of Nicole and Chris Raven. And basically her main role is she's the emotional stake in the film for Chris, and him wanting to prove his innocence. Because, the movie starts with him in a very dark place, feeling guilty, feeling guilt and regret for the death of his previous partner, and then so that all that stuff happens, and so, but he wants to obviously prove himself innocent, because if she wasn't in this film, I don't know if he would care enough to try to prove himself innocent, and he would just want to die, basically. But with her being the emotional lifeline of him, he gives him a reason to want to live and be better, basically. So Britt Raven acts as that emotional lifeline to Chris, but she's also a witness in the trial to basically help prove his innocence. She has two Instagram accounts, I think, and one of them is that she kept hidden from her parents, and obviously Chris has access to that because it's important to the case, and all, I think, phones are required to be uploaded to this so that they have access to it. But obviously not all phones, because you can still have burners and whatnot, which will come up later when we talk about plot. So yeah. Anyways, we'll talk about that plot-wise. She'll come up again later, I think. Anyways, my bullet points. Maybe, who knows? Maybe she does. Maybe she doesn't. I don't know. I don't remember when I wrote this. Anyways, now we'll talk about Nicole Raven. Like I said, she was the wife of Chris, and she got murdered. She worked for a shipping company called Viking Shipping, and she got her marriage was very strained with Chris, and because of that, I think, well, this is not an excuse for her, because what she did was still very bad. Even if your husband is grumpy and whatnot, you still shouldn't go and cheat on him, because she cheats on Chris with some sous chef guy named Patrick Burke, and he's also important for the investigation, but I didn't include him on here, mainly because he's not that integral of a character to the story. All right. So yeah, that's pretty much all her. We later learned, Patrick Burke is the only reason he's important is because he gives Chris a lead that leads him to Nicole's coworkers, because she was part of this investigation in the company about some chemicals that have been going missing. So she was investigating that. So yeah. Anyways, number 6 on the list is David Webb. David Webb is a homeless man, because in this is centered in L.A., which already is actually scary how accurate this is pretty much to real life, because that's obviously L.A. is a hotbed for the homeless and drug addicts, and illegal immigrants, but we won't get into that. So basically there are these things called red districts, or red zones or whatever, and that's where all the homeless are kind of forced to congregate and stay. It's basically lawless areas pretty much, and the cops rarely go into those. So yeah. Anyways, David Webb, he was a homeless man. He lived in one of the red zones. He was a drug addict. Then he got arrested by Chris Raven and his new partner, Jacqueline, or Jack, I think is what she's called, in the film for most of the time. He got arrested for murder, and then he was the first person to be given a mercy trial, and then he failed to prove himself innocent and got killed, got executed, and that's basically all his character is. So yeah, and then we have number 7 is Jacqueline, which is the new partner of Chris Raven after his last partner died in the line of duty. Also, I think the reason why he feels guilty and regrets that is because he caught the guy that basically killed his old partner, but then the person that killed him got off basically scot-free. So he feels guilty, and regretful because he didn't kill the person that killed his partner, Anyways, back to Jacqueline. So yeah, she's the new partner of Chris Raven. She also is one of the people that arrested David Webb with Chris. She also endorses the Mercy Court with him, and she's very proud of the Mercy Court as a crime deterrent. And that was her main goal with the Mercy Court, is that she wanted the Mercy Court to be a crime deterrent. Whereas Chris Raven wants the Mercy Court to be an unbiased judge that only deals with, its only concern is dealing out justice. That's what Chris wants the mercy system to be, whereas Jacqueline isn't necessarily concerned with that. She just wants it to be a crime deterrent, which it is, because who would want to get executed? Am I right? Alright, that's pretty much it for characters. The plot, I have lots of bullet points for the plot. I have about 2 pages worth of bullet points for this plot, because, it's a movie. Movies are kind of long. Alright, anyways, let's get into the plot now. Anyway, it starts off, let me give my opinions on these characters first, I guess. I like some of the characters. I like Chris Raven's kind of redemption arc, and the twists and turns that some of these characters have in the investigation. I don't really want to spoil it quite yet, because it will come up whenever I'm talking about the plot. So that's why I don't really want to spoil it. Even though I'm looking to do that in a second. So, yeah. Anyways, I also like Britt Raven. How she kind of comes around to her dad, because she went to go stay with Nicole's parents, and they all apparently have always hated Chris, and so they're trying to convince her that her dad actually did kill her mom and their daughter. So she kind of starts off, like, in the beginning of the movie, she kind of starts off with that in her mind, and then she kind of believes them, and then, stuff happens, and the truth comes out. So yeah. Anyways, plot. I really enjoyed the plot of this movie. I thought the concept of the film is very interesting, and the investigation is also, the actual, mystery aspect, I guess, is really good, and you're actually able to follow along with the investigation and actually are able to deduce who the bad guy is before it is actually fully revealed based on the evidence that is presented, which is good for all crime shows. All crime shows should do that. They should allow you to be able to figure out who it is before it is fully revealed, and anyways, that way you can, you feel like you are, I don't know where I'm going with that point, but it's a nice aspect to a show or a film. So yeah. Anyways, the film starts off with the explanation of the rampant crime, the red zones, and what the Mercy Court is, and then after that, I think, immediately after that, Chris Raven is brought up, he's woken up in this chair, this execution chair, and he's brought into the trial room. And then, at first, like any person, he thinks that him being there is a mistake, and he refuses to believe that he killed his wife, but he can't remember too well because he was drunk. And then right now he would have a hangover, because these mercy trials literally happen pretty much immediately after arrest, from my understanding of the film. So yeah, and then eventually, he still, he wastes the first 30 minutes. The first I wouldn't say 30 minutes. It's pretty much 30 minutes. Not 30 minutes, because he is what? Let's say he wastes the first 20 minutes or 10 minutes doing, being, not believing that he's put on this trial. Anyways, eventually he calls his daughter, and eventually calls his daughter, gathers himself, and is ready to start his investigation. So then, after that, he calls his partner, and they walk the scene together, coming to conclusions. I mean, he doesn't really come to any sort of conclusion until later he reviews a video that was filmed by his daughter of an argument that him and Nicole were having, and at the tail end of the video sees Nicole on her phone message somebody. But then it turns out that she only has one phone according to the Mercy program, the Mercy judge, which is obviously not the case because she has a work phone, which that work phone turns out to be a burner phone, and that's why the Mercy has no record of it. So anyways, they're able to, Chris's partner is able to track down that phone, and that's what leads to a man called Burke, and him having an affair, and Nicole's affair being uncovered. But then also it turns out Burke obviously didn't do it because he was at the restaurant that he worked at for the entire time that would have happened when she, at the time of death of Nicole's murder, he was at work. So it obviously wasn't him. But then later, Chris goes back to talk to Burke, and that's when Burke, because Burke was being, I don't know, like, he was agitating or instigating with Chris about how he couldn't get off the booze and that he should have just listened to her problems. It's like, which, I mean, yeah, she has problems because there's chemicals going missing at work, but, like, I think Chris's problems kind of outweigh those a little bit. So he needs help first, and then you, right? Because he's dealing with the death of a very close friend that he thinks it's his fault and that he could have prevented it, and that he's responsible for the guy that did it getting away free without any sort of punishment. So anyways, Burke, he has to go back to Burke because he said something about her work life, and that ends up being a lead to the whole missing chemicals at Nicole's work lead, which Chris readily sets to the side, and then goes back to a video that was filmed on his daughter's Instagram, his daughter's hidden Instagram, this figure one. She was on a video call with presumably her boyfriend, who's kind of, he seems like a douche because he's talking about like beating up her dad or something. I don't really remember. It was like it's been a little while since I've seen the movie, while I'm talking about this here. Anyways, that video, she hears the sound coming from downstairs while this time, and she says that it's her dad's home. Chris was not home at that time. He was at work or at a bar or something. And then she goes down, films an empty house basically, where Chris notices that an open basement door, which they always keep closed. And then he has the Mercy court program clean up the image, and you can see that there is a man that was in the basement. So that is why on all the cameras and stuff you can't see like any visible entrance to the of the house, somebody else entering the house, is because that the person that was there, by the way, also earlier Nicole and Chris hosted a barbecue in their backyard where they invited work friends. I think this was mainly Nicole's friends, and apparently one of them never left. So one of them is involved in her death, and then Mercy suggests that he goes back and looks at the rest of the case. So they look to, he calls Robert Nelson again, and he was at work at that time, and he said that he left early and drove people home, basically is what he said. So then Chris turns his eyes onto another coworker of Nicole's, because it was her and then 2 other people were involved in the investigation, and he's trying to figure out who those people are. And I'm pretty sure it was this gambling guy, the guy with the gambling problem, and Robert Nelson. So the guy with the gambling problem, Chris thinks that he stole the drugs and is selling them to pay off his gambling debts, and then Nicole found out about it, and then that's why he murdered Nicole. So he calls that coworker and is looking for Robert Nelson, mainly because he wants Robert to hold him there so that he can question him. But then Robert isn't at work at the time, so then he just talks to him straight right then. And the coworker, Chris accuses him, basically accuses the gambling guy. I don't remember his name, so that's why I'm calling him Gambling Guy. So yeah, he accuses him of murdering Nicole and all that stuff, and to pay off his gambling debts. And Chris then, he denies it. Chris looks at the inflow of his money. Turns out Robert gave him $4,000 to help him, and the coworker told Chris that he was the one who actually drove Robert's car home the night of the barbecue. So Robert did not actually leave the barbecue. So this led to a raid on Robert's house, and there they discovered a picture, a ripped picture that was Robert as a kid, and then there was another kid's hand in the ripped photo. So then Chris had Mercy try to go figure out who that kid was, while he watched as the SWAT team entered the garage, found so on the wall that there was a poster or a calendar that was in the it's the same calendar that was in the background whenever he did his last FaceTime call with Robert Nelson. And so then he learns that Robert wasn't actually at work at the time of the last call. He was there, and they find some traces of the drugs in the garage, and learn that he's actually not planning on selling those drugs. He's planning on making a bomb out of them and blowing up the Mercy Court. And then Mercy eventually finds out who the other kid in the photo was, and it turns out that it was Robert's brother, David Webb. And Robert was actually formerly known as Robert Webb until he was adopted by the Nelson family, but his brother was not adopted with him. So after that revelation, I believe the garage blows up. Everyone, I'm pretty sure all the SWAT team dies, except Jacqueline manages to live. And then there's a big old chase scene chasing Robert, because it also turns out that Robert kidnapped Chris's daughter Britt. And then Robert eventually arrives at Mercy Court, and Chris is finally released from, he proved himself innocent a while ago, but he stayed in there to have access to Mercy and be allowed to comb through all the evidence and have the assistance of the Mercy Court. And he gets down to 3 seconds, or he'll be executed before he's released from the chair. So good thing he got released from the chair. Anyways, because it crashed into because Robert crashed his big old semi truck into the building that has like the big old bomba, and that did damage to obviously the computer program that runs Mercy, and so Mercy kind of struggled to release, like had to wasn't releasing him until it kind of fixed itself, I think. Anyways, Chris then goes down to confront Robert, and that's when Robert activates a dead man switch. And Robert's whole main goal with this is he wants to prove that David Webb was actually innocent. So they're trying to have Mercy and Chris are trying to distract him so he doesn't, while Mercy analyzes the dead man switch. So then once that's finally done, Chris disarms the dead man switch and then disarms Robert. And he gets this close to killing Robert, but his daughter's like, no, don't do it, don't kill him. And so he doesn't for her, right? And then, character growth right there, because he was totally in the mindset of, it's like, I'm not going to let you get off being innocent of this crime that you clearly committed, like what happened with his previous partner's murderer. So yeah, and then eventually he lets his Jacqueline arrives. I think she literally, his shot goes off, so I think she shot him in the arm, and she's going to kill him. Chris doesn't let her. And then they analyze Robert's evidence that he has to help to prove his brother David Webb innocent, and Mercy listens to said evidence, and we learn that David was given a phone by Robert, and on the night of the murder that happened, David was actually on a call with Robert and nowhere near the crime scene. He was nowhere near the crime scene, and it turns out that Jacqueline had not because she was the one who processed the evidence of that arrest, and she did not process the phone, and she actually threw the phone away. So, and that call log would have exonerated David Webb. Although I'm not sure how that trial would have gone, because 90 minutes is not a lot of time to prove yourself innocent, and you kind of have to understand the steps in which an investigation is taken to actually be able to be productive, and you have to remain calm, which on an execution chair with 90 minutes to prove yourself innocent or you're executed, that's a lot of ask to do. So I don't know if he would have succeeded anyways, but that call log obviously would have exonerated him, but it wasn't in the criminal records, so he didn't have access to it. So yeah, Robert and Jacqueline both get arrested, and that's pretty much how the movie ends. Right there. Hopefully, we don't see what the future holds for that story. It could be that the Mercy program, the Mercy Court, is discontinued or whatever. I'm not entirely sure, but yeah, that's pretty good. It's a pretty good plot, and me and my dad, whenever we went to go watch the movie, we both kind of, before it was revealed, were like, I think it was this Robert Nelson guy. I think he's behind it, and then after that, I deduced that he was the brother of David Webb, because some of these are just like story tropes, right? So it's kind of easy to tell what's going to happen, but that doesn't make it a bad film. Tropes aren't bad, they're tropes for a reason. So anyways, hopefully they do discontinue the Mercy Court judge, because while it might be unbiased, it's also not going to always have all the stuff it needs to be able to prove somebody innocent. So maybe don't let a computer execute people. Now, I do think it can be it can be very beneficial, because as we saw as you would see in the film, it the Mercy program really does help with criminal investigations. It helps organize the data that police need. It's easy to access that data, and it's basically like a crime investigative assistant. I think that's great, and that's probably what it should be used for. And I wouldn't mind having the police having an AI like that, because that would just help with their investigations. I don't think computers or AI should be the overall judge of people ever, but being an investigative tool, I think that would be very useful to law enforcement. Anyways, conclusion. I think that part of that was my conclusion that I had written. Anyways, yeah, it's literally right there. Beneficial tool, should not be in charge of judging people. Alright, anyways, I think out of like a 5-star rating, I would give this a 3.75 out of 5 stars. It was a good movie. Obviously, it's not a masterpiece. It's not that. It's kind of thought-provoking, I would say, at least in terms of whether or not we should have AI be the judges of us or humans, if like they would make good, unbiased judges. I think it's fair to say that they wouldn't, because they would be made by humans who are inherently biased. So I don't think that they would make good judges. And I thought it was a good movie. There's not much I guess I could say otherwise. It's just a good film. It's a good film. I would recommend that people watch it. I wouldn't say it's like a must watch or anything, but it's very good, and I think people would like it a lot. Also, it was also kind of nice because it wasn't very. It was kind of political, but not in like the movie itself was political, not like in the context of the movie like world. It was political, but in the context of like real world like politics being shoved into the movie, wasn't really there, at least in my opinion. But I enjoyed it. So, anyways, that's gonna be all for this video. So if y'all liked it, then go watch Mercy for yourself if you want. I don't know why you would be here if you haven't seen the damn movie already, but whatever. And if you like my content, then please do subscribe and like the video, because that will help my channel grow to insurmountable heights. But yeah, that will help me out a lot. So anyways, with that being said, I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.